All right.
Yep.
Hello.
Yep.
Off to a great start. Hello, folks. My name is Scrappy Fan 92, and others. I feel indifferent. Hi, welcome to another episode of Storytime with Scrappy. This is our 10th episode, and it means nothing. We're literally doing the exact same thing we always do.
Try to take over the world?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I knew it.
Perfect.
With us, yes, with us today is our perennial prisoner, Harry.
Insert funny joke here.
Returning after a brief absence is Nova.
Well, he's gone AFK. Episode's cancelled.
RIP.
Returning after a brief absence is Nova.
Sorry, but it comes with the territory of having to deal with a 10-year-old phone and, I guess, okay earphones.
That's fair.
Wow, your phone is older than mine. And with us for the first Love Live episode, for his first Love Live episode, and I hope that is coming through for the audience. It's not!
I heard it, so it should.
Say hi to the kid savior.
Hello. It is me. But I'm not gonna be. I won't be doing any crazy voice shenanigans because I'm actually connected through my phone because there's a bit of internet, a bit of Wi-Fi problems going on from my computer, and I'd rather not have to enter and exit the call over again. So I'm doing this from my phone. So yeah, no crazy voice changing shenanigans this time.
Yeah, we've all actually.
Really
I was gonna ask you because like there was I noticed the quality difference.
Yeah.
And with us today are my dogs.
Oh, I can actually hear them this time.
Folks, I am so sorry. Where are we at? And
Yeah.
our other commentators.
Couldn't bring back the ums.
See, it works as a running gag because it's just a natural thing. It's part of us.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm just enraptured by these singing frogs.
Oh yeah, you got Wart and the frogs.
Previously, we read a Rugrats story, but that was intended to be our buffer episode in between reading Love Live fanfiction because that stuff hurts our throats.
Yeah.
We will resume reading till we make our Ascent by Ottermelon. A story on Archive of Our Own, or A30, AO3.
AO3, yeah.
Alfheim Online 3.
Oh god,
Let's go.
no, I don't want to think about that show right now.
Xavier wasn't present for those prior episodes of the Love Live story, and that's what we're going to tell him about, the Love Live story. Taking place several years after the end of the original series, it focuses on a grown-up Umi as she reunites with her friend Maki in college. That's kind of it.
Okay.
That's basically what we're up to so far.
Yeah, first two chapters were set up. So basically, Umi has had a bout of inspiration, and she's trying to get back into songwriting.
Oh.
And she's enlisted her old friend Maki, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
So, I will resume, since Lewis is not present with us today, I will resume the role of narrator against all of our better judgment. Savior, what roles would you like? Would you like to do an OC? Would you like to do Umi? Would you like to voice Umi?
I honestly forgot how the girls sound like.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
You know what? I'll do Umi.
Alright.
I know I'm probably just gonna butcher the voice, but
It's fine.
Let's just go anyways.
Yep. Alright, let us begin. We actually start with a, I'm presuming is a lyrical excerpt. No, I haven't read chapter early. Sorry, folks. It's gonna be one of those episodes. Till we make our ascent. Chapter 3. Comfort in the orchestration. And this is a long one. And she said, "What are you doing? What are you doing here? The moment I have long since feared. Oh, I'm not the girl you left behind. She's been gone for quite some time." The reign of Kindo. City lights and traffic sounds. Umi drummed her fingers on the countertop. The humming of her espresso machine. Off to a great start. The humming of her espresso machine sounding strangely musical to her at the moment. Its presence in her apartment was the result of a sleep-deprived impulse and a surplus of money that she didn't really know what to do with. She had been working for a few months at the library, and outside of the extra food that she now found within her budget, she had yet to make any large purchases with her paychecks. Is anyone else getting static?
I can kind of hear some static.
A little bit.
I think it was Nova. He must have been trying to say something, and we couldn't hear him. Nova, it's not. Is your mic better?
Okay, should be better.
Okay.
Alright, that's good to know. Was there something you were trying to tell us?
No.
Alright then, we can resume. Let's see, she had been working for a few months at the library, and outside of the extra food that she now found within her budget, she had yet to make any large purchases with her paychecks. Then one afternoon at the supermarket, she saw it. A personal espresso maker. Stainless steel. It advertised high quality brews at a reasonable price. Normally, Umi's eyes would have bulged at what they called reasonable, but a quick glance at her wallet made her realize that it was well within reach. Although she drew more than one curious, or was it pitying, glance on the train ride back to her apartment, it was well worth it after she plugged it in and thought about all the time she'd save now that she wouldn't have to make the 10-minute trek to the mediocre coffee shop on campus every time she needed her caffeine fix. With finals only a week away, her caffeine fix had increased by the day. She needed stronger doses with increasing frequency. The espresso machine fixed both of these problems. She watched the last few drops plink into her cerulean coffee cup, then grabbed it along with her all-in-one creamer and brought both items back to her desk. She set them down on the respective coasters and turned her attention to her computer screen. 3 papers down, 1 to go. If she finished this last one early, heavy revisions notwithstanding, she had almost an entire week to focus on the song. She had more than simply lyrics to consider now that Maki had given her an additional songwriting task, busy as the redhead was with finals herself. Let's see. And this is Maki speaking. Nobody, you want to voice Maki?
Sure. All right. Anyway, okay. Okay, so reread the line.
Let's see. Busy as the redhead was with finals herself. And then first line after that.
This isn't super important to the song or anything, but is there a reason that all the lyrics are in English?
The question had been posed by Maki about a week prior, one morning over breakfast. She had spent the night after hearing about Umi's new espresso machine and wanted to try it out herself. This entailed heavy use of said machine well into the night. Oh my gosh. Umi had almost run out of coffee grounds and was relieved when Maki finally decided to call it a night.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to try something new.
Umi answered.
We've also been studying a lot of Western poets in my classes, and I think English can be a very poetic language, hard as it is. She
Maki...
says in Japanese.
Yes.
You gotta suspend your disbelief, or whatever the saying is for this stuff, because when they have, like, Japanese characters clearly speaking in English, it's a little bit wonky.
And that's why I read my anime fanfiction raw, Harry.
Yeah, because like they're technically in universe, they're talking in Japanese.
Yeah.
We're all a bunch of dub weeaboos. I think we'll be fine. Maki nodded as she gathered some scrambled eggs on her spoon.
English. Oh, wait.
English or Japanese? English or Japanese? It's fine. I just hope you're ready to sing it.
Umi chuckled nervously.
I wonder about that.
They ate in silence for a few minutes.
How confident are you in your music theory?
Maki asked. The blue-haired girl looked up from her breakfast, mulling over her experience for a moment.
Not very. I have a guitar at home that I used when I wanted to experiment with vocal melodies, but I just played and sang by ear.
I am so glad there's so much more dialogue in this chapter already. Thank you. Maki raised a forkful of scrambled eggs to her mouth.
Why didn't you mention that when you were talking about musical experience?
Thank you, Nova.
I wouldn't really consider that playing an instrument.
I would. Anyway.
She continued in between chews.
At the start, do you want to help me write the song?
She asked with her mouth still full.
I'm much more comfortable letting you handle it.
Umi brushed aside the possibility with a wave of her hand.
Songwriting is far too intricate for me.
You would just read the basics, chord structure of the verses and choruses, that kind of thing.
Umi blinked.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Trust me, it's easy.
Now Maki picked up her glass of orange juice and sipped it.
I was thinking about what you said last week and how personal these lyrics are. I think if you could put something coherent together, it'd definitely come across as your song. I'm still going to be in charge of the final arrangement, of course, but the final arrangement might take a completely different path depending on what the initial chords sound like.
But what about the jazz angle you wanted to take?
What about it?
Maki looked at her curiously.
I want to keep it, of course.
You think I'm qualified to write a jazz piece?
Umi answered, incredulous. Umi asked,
Asked.
incredulous. I can't read. Umi asked, incredulous. Her fork dug into her fluffy scrambled eggs with little more force than necessary.
Like I said, it's just the basics. If we're talking about song structure, a lot of contemporary pieces are going to follow the same formula, regardless of genre.
Umi processed this for a moment, weighing the redhead's statements against the complex and often confusing arrangements that many of the jazz pieces she'd heard recently. She picked up her orange juice absently, swirling it back and forth slightly so it wouldn't spill. It didn't give her a proper answer to Maki's proposition like she'd hoped.
If I agreed, you'd still handle the important parts of it, right?
Maki laughed, although it was restrained due to the eggs that she had just taken a bite of.
I don't know what you mean. Figuring out a chord structure is just as important as embellishing and tweaking those chords. You can't have the second one without the first.
I suppose so.
Umi sighed.
I know you can do it.
Maki assured her. She smiled, and Umi wondered in the back of her mind when her junior had become sincere.
Did you bring your guitar from home? I haven't seen it anywhere.
She gave Umi's apartment a cursory once-over.
No, I left it at home. There wasn't really any reason for me to bring it since we aren't writing songs anymore.
Umi gathered her eating utensils and stood up to put them in the sink, before she realized her mistake and added,
Not until this one.
I have one in my room that I haven't used much. You can have.
Are you sure? I still have some extra money for my job that I can use.
Really? Fine. I bought it as a substitute for the piano. But I find out I don't even have time for the guitar either.
Maki scooped up the last bit of eggs on her plate and got up to join Umi at the sink.
There are also some online music lessons that I can link you to. They just teach you some easy guitar chords and how to work your way around the first few frets of the fretboard.
The confusion must have been apparent on Umi's face, because Maki added hastily,
Don't worry, it'll make sense when you get started.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Umi turned on the sink and offered Maki her hand. Offered Maki her hand, at which her junior gave her the plate and utensils.
Are you sure it would save time for me to learn all this and then write the song? By the time I'm done figuring out the basics, you could have finished already.
Even if it doesn't save time, I'm just your helper, remember? I don't want to make something that's different than what you imagined.
Maki walked back to the table and picked up her glass of orange juice, still half full.
You might be able to avoid that if you have an idea of how you want it to sound. Besides,
She downed a portion of her juice before continuing.
you've been a part of the songwriting process for years already. You might know more than you think.
Umi didn't respond immediately. She scrubbed her plate with a wet sponge, thinking about what she would have to sacrifice to realistically write a decent song in 2 weeks. She grimaced as she subsequently realized that sleep would probably be the first thing to go, as usual. Still, Maki's points were valid, and frankly, somewhat empowering. This really was her song, after all.
Okay, I'll do it.
Maki smiled, as if she had never considered the possibility of Umi declining.
Great. When did you want me to drop off my guitar?
And end flashback, because apparently that was a flashback. Umi glanced at the Martin sitting on its. Oh my gosh. Umi glanced at the Martin sitting on its stand, which Maki had also provided. Its design wasn't very distinct. Cherry wood with a light tan finish, according to Maki at least. But after playing a few chords and attempting to compare its sound with the old Yamaha she had at home, she had innocently looked up the price range of these guitars. She had promptly slammed her laptop screen shut after seeing the four-figure guitars on the Martin website, and handled the delicate and expensive instrument with significantly more care afterwards. Maki hadn't even mentioned how valuable the guitar. Oh my gosh. Maki hadn't even mentioned how valuable the guitar that she lent to Umi was, although the blue-haired girl suspected that she might not have been aware of its price herself. Part of her wanted to buy a guitar bag for it so that it wouldn't be sitting out and exposed to the elements of her apartment. She also wanted to buy a large, airtight vault and seal it in, but that would defeat the purpose of Maki lending her guitar in the first place. So she had to settle with washing her hands before and after playing it. Whether it was through her allegedly misplaced confidence or sheer luck, Maki had been right. Umi's past guitar experience carried her through the online lessons. She picked up on the open chords quickly and knew how to hold her hand on the fretboard so that her fingers wouldn't unnecessarily block other strings. Lower action was easier on her fingers and allowed for longer playing sessions, which, she hated to admit, did have the tendency to cut into her studying time. The music theory aspect wasn't as easy for her to grasp until help came in the form of an extremely useful text that Maki had sent her shortly after lending her the Martin. Umi.
I'm having trouble identifying the chorus of the song and when they change.
Maki. Maki.
Do you remember when you used to count steps during practice?
Umi.
Yes, what about it?
Maki.
It's like that. Sometimes you only count to 3. Sometimes you count to 6. But mostly, you just count to 4. I'm sure you already knew that.
Ah, it's really that simple?
Yeah. The chord changes are usually at the beginning of each measure. So each time you start over at 1, not always, but most of the time.
Wow, thank you.
To her dismay, Umi had found that jazz was one of the more difficult genres to differentiate chords. The piano and guitar on occasion was often playing some ridiculous sounding variant that she couldn't replicate on her own. She then tuned into the bass line, which proved to be no help either, due to its constant walking all over the fretboard. She had sent Maki yet another worried text on the matter, and her junior had simply responded,
Listen to our old song. A lot of them are pretty straightforward.
She had been right. The only obstacle left was to combine the two, somehow. Maki's advice to stick to basic chords was rooted firmly in her mind, but at present, she only had a week before Christmas vacation to write out even the simplest of chords. It was already a miracle that she had gotten through all the lessons so quickly. Now Umi would need another miracle to churn something out that she'd be satisfied with. None of this even considered the larger problem that loomed over her at the moment, of course.
I'm seriously gonna write a song during finals?
I think that was supposed to be Umi. Savior!
He's away.
Sorry. Yeah, just quickly taking a bathroom break. I didn't think I would be here to get back. I thought.
It's fine. Go. Take your break. I guess this would be just a decent stopping point to discuss some theme,
chill
literary
out.
stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Harry, what do you think the literary relevance of Umi's hair color is?
You got me. It's like trying to think of like something like deep, and I don't know. I mean, blue is one of my favorite colors, so I mean, there's that.
Says the Sonic fan.
I mean, it's it's kind of funny how that works, because blue and red are my favorite colors, and then there's Sonic and Knuckles, so there you go. That's not intentional, I swear to God.
You say that, but that's how media works.
Yeah. Well, I think I might have mentioned this at some in an earlier session of this, but one thing I like is that one of the author's goals was to have more what is it? Chemistry between Umi and Maki, because those are the characters that actually do the composing stuff for the music, and they don't really interact that much in the show, and I really like that he focused on that, because I find the writing of like how they actually come up with the song in general to be really fascinating, because writing music is something that's actually really complicated, and I don't think it gets as much respect as it really deserves.
Let me simplify that. Writing is complicated.
Right? Yeah, writing in general is, yeah. So I think, for what it's worth, I think what was it, like, Automelon? Or I don't remember who
Watermelon.
Automelon, yeah. For what it's worth, I think he or she, I don't know the gender, I think they managed to convey that fairly well in this fic. What do you guys think?
I appreciate this, I appreciate this kind of, I guess you could say, deep dive. A deep dive into the actual, I guess, how would you describe it? The business side of the former Muse members.
Yeah. That's true. I'm looking forward to when we get the other characters.
Who gets to voice Nico?
If Tanner's available for that, I'd like him to do it.
Yeah, he gives off Nico energy.
Yeah, but I can actually do the Nikos more.
You and Tanner gotta fight to the death.
Oh,
My
God.
ears! Yeah, we're just gonna lock you and Tanner in a room, and first person to leave the room safely gets to do the roll.
But like the most intense staring contest ever.
I was thinking more of a knife fight, but there's only one
God.
knife, so you gotta fight over that too.
Oh, jeez.
Both of you two assumed it'd be a contest.
Alright. So, yeah, you kind of bring up, interesting point, Harry. The Muse gang, they're friends, they hang, but they don't really hang, like, one-on-one.
Yeah, that's the problem when you have just 2 seasons, and 9 main characters. What the show generally does is like it usually has like at least 1 or so episodes centered around like a specific character, so they can get like their development. But it's like there's usually like specific groups that the characters tend to fall under, and because of that, there's some whatchamacallit, like not
Interactions.
yeah, interactions that aren't seen as much as they could be. And I feel like that's just a side effect of having so many major characters.
Yeah, Katori didn't really hang out with anyone other than her subunit, for lack of a better term.
Pretty much just her like childhood friends, yeah.
Yeah, you weren't gonna see her like palling around with Nico or anything.
That, yeah.
Truth be told, Nico didn't really hang with anyone. Savior, welcome back.
Thank you.
Alright.
Where are you guys?
Hell. Let's see. None of this even considered the larger problem that loomed over her at the moment, of course.
Okay, there we go. I'm seriously going to write a song during finals?
She posed a question to an empty apartment and sighed, since she already knew the answer. On the bright side, Maki's finals stretched all the way until that Friday, while Umi's ended 3 days prior. 3 days prior, that Tuesday. She had 3 extra days to scrape something together before sending the redhead back home to to Akiba District with a rough outline of a song in hand.
Akihabara.
Thank you. On a not-so-bright side, the deadline for Umi's final paper was less than 48 hours away, and she had already known that her Keats analysis wouldn't be completed until the last minute. Oh gosh, I remember Keats. It was technically due Tuesday, but she wanted Satoshi to look over it before she turned it in. He had the final say in her grade after all. She spared one final glance at the She spared one final glance at the Cherry Martin before pushing it out of her field of vision and refocusing on her screen. The song could wait, but Keats couldn't. Umi couldn't stifle her yawns during the trek to Satoshi's office. It was still well before noon, but she was already thinking about the next time that she could sleep. The 3 hours that she had managed to sneak in the The 3 hours that she had managed to sneak in the night before were not much of a help, as a brief glance in the mirror had confirmed the presence of dark circles under her eyes, heavy with a consistent lack of sleep. Still, she wanted to believe that it was worth it. She had finished her radically revised analysis at approximately 5:30 that night, or was it morning? And even snuck in a half hour of songwriting before retiring. Though her paper was written to the soundtrack of jazz, Hiromi Uehara, Thelonious Monk, and Bill Evans had particularly clicked with her that night. And with considerably more effort, Umi couldn't help but wonder if this would reflect in her final grade. She climbed the stone steps to Satoshi's office, thankful that he was only on the second floor of the literature building. Another student sat on the ground next to his door, and walking closer, Umi's face lit up with recognition. Even though her face was turned away from Umi, her short black hair and matching bag, adorned with that signature Muse button, still gave her identity away.
Hello, Marika-san.
She greeted her fellow second year, who didn't respond. Umi raised an eyebrow and called to her again. This time, the other girl stirred and turned to face Umi with a soft groan. What is it? Marika answered groggily, one eye opening to look at Umi while she rubbed the other. Oh, for Pete's sake. Umi-san? How long have I been out?
I don't know. I just got here.
Did you see anyone come out of Satoshi-san's office? Marika brought her arms over her head in a long stretch.
No. How long have you been waiting?
Umi stepped closer to her classmate, debating whether to join Marika on the ground or not. She decided against it. Not sure. There was someone in there when I showed up, so I decided to sit down and wait. Guess I dozed off. Umi sized up the concrete beneath them in a stucco.
I don't even know how to pronounce that either, man.
And the stucco that comprised the corresponding wall, mentally weighing their comfort factor.
Are you sleeping well? Finals probably aren't easy for you either.
The other girl chuckled. When are finals ever easy? I've been ditching club meetings for the last week or so to cram, but that might not even be enough. To answer your own question, though, no, I'm not. Okay, I can read that better. To answer your own question, though, no, I'm not. She flashed Umi a tired grin. It looks like you're in the same boat. Umi's hand instinctively rose to cover her face. She rubbed at the area under her eyes with her thumb and index finger.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I was up late last night finishing my paper.
Oh, you always write the best papers the night before they're due. Umi couldn't tell if her classmate was joking, but she didn't get a chance to ask. Did you end up getting help from Satoshi-san?
I did.
Umi nodded. Did you take it as Did you take his advice? Can I see? She stuck her hand out.
Sure.
Knowing Marika wouldn't take no for an answer, Umi took her bag off of her shoulders to search for her paper. But at that moment, the door opened. A student walked out and called his thanks over his shoulder, and shortly after, their TA stuck his head out of the door. Oh gosh. Oh man, what does a 20-something sound like? I just don't know. Xavier, do you think I could voice a 20-something-year-old male?
I guess.
I don't know, I just feel like I don't think I have the background for that.
I guess I'll do the lines if you don't want to.
No, that was a joke. That I was like that was the joke.
Tell.
Because I'm terrible at telling jokes. Like that's the thing. I don't need to change my voice because this man Satoshi, I have a kinship with him. He is me, so he's gonna sound like me. Who's next? Nikaido-san? Sonoda-san? He nodded his head at each of the girls in turn. Marika leapt to her feet. Sorry. She glanced apologetically at Umi. I'm sure you did great, though. You can both come in if you want. I didn't realize it would be so cold out here. Satoshi looked out across the campus, rubbing his shoulders with each arm.
Oh, like the middle of December, though.
The blue-haired girl exchanged a glance with Marika, who shrugged.
Pardon me, then.
Maybe you can give me feedback, too. Marika jabbed her lightly with an elbow. Umi resisted the urge to roll her eyes.
I don't think I'm qualified to do so.
She closed the door behind them and began to remove her windbreaker. Whether it was due to lack of sleep, nerves, or both, Umi tuned out the discussion about Marika's paper to focus on her own. She flipped through the 8 pages that she churned out last night, and her mounting unease grew with each paragraph she scanned. They had seemed coherent, convincing even, while she was writing them, but now she fixated on each awkwardly worded sentence, each argument that could be misread as forced. There were still more than 24 hours before the final deadline, but she didn't know if she could handle another revision. Sweat was just starting to form in tiny beads around on her forehead when she heard a nearby chair clatter. She looked up to see Marika already on her feet, talking in a positive sounding tone to their TA. The specifics of the conversation eluded her. Umi shook her head rapidly. Thanks, I feel a lot better about my paper now. Of course, Nikaido-san. That's what I'm here for. Satoshi nodded at Umi's classmate encouragingly. Marika caught Umi looking at her on her way out and flashed her a thumbs up with a grin to accompany it. Good luck. Umi could only respond with a quick nod of her own. Well-meaning as it was, Marika's gesture did little to quell her churning stomach. Umi remembered vaguely that she hadn't eaten since last night. So, Sona-the-san, I do hope that you took my advice to heart. Satoshi sat at his desk, hands neatly folded together. Umi swallowed her unease and nodded while making her way to the chair opposite her TA. Wordlessly, she handed him her revised paper. He started to read through it, adopting the intense glare that he usually reserved for papers as important as this one. It didn't take long for Umi to begin to fidget. His lack of immediate feedback and that stare did little to reassure her. She rubbed her hands together and stared at the floor. Sona-the-san. Even Satoshi's tone lacked any hints about the quality of her paper.
Is it better?
She tried, folding and unfolding her hands in her lap.
I tried a different approach this time around.
You certainly did, and with resounding success, I must say. Finally, a wide and earnest smile broke out on her teaching assistant's face as he began to scrawl in the margins of her paper. Right now, I can't read your paper extremely closely, of course, but I can already tell that your analysis is so much more impassioned and cohesive. I've seen many writers that veer off topic or even start to ramble about hard impact topics, but I've yet to see any of that here.
Thank you.
Umi managed, although she braced herself for any qualifying statements that were sure to follow.
I'm here for any and all feedback after all. Do you have any suggestions?
Satoshi continued to scribble on her paper before answering. Nothing major that I can see. Just some spots where I think you could be more clear, but those aren't going to break your grade. If I may ask, he continued, smiling, is there any particular reason that you decided to take the approach that you did? Your analysis is very interesting at first glance. Umi rubbed the back of her neck self-consciously.
I guess I just felt more inspired this time around.
He regarded her for a moment, then broke out into a chuckle. I'll take your word for it. Not everyone is comfortable with sharing their muse, especially younger writers.
Ha, muse.
She couldn't help but smile upon hearing this, even though her teaching assistant meant something else. The word meant a lot more to her than he realized. I shouldn't keep you for too long now. Satoshi handed Umi her paper back, and she accepted it.
Yes, thank you.
She stood up to leave, and was almost at the door when Satoshi addressed her again. Sona-san.
Yes?
Umi turned around to see him sporting an earnest smile. A paper like that one is more along the lines of what I expect. Oh gosh. A paper like that one is more along the lines of what I expected from you. I'm sure this is only the beginning for you.
Again, he really doesn't know what he's saying.
Still, she accepted the compliment.
I hope so as well.
Umi was surprised to see Marika waiting for her outside Satoshi's office. You're going back to your apartment, right? The black-haired girl asked.
Yes. Are you walking that way too?
Marika fell into step beside her as they descended the stairs. Yeah, the closest bus stop is on the east side of campus.
Really? That's still a 15-minute walk.
It's alright. The exercise is probably good for me. Did your paper get ripped apart by Satoshi-san?
Surprisingly, he had many good things to say about it.
Umi shrugged her bag off of her shoulder and produced her paper from inside.
You can look over it if you still want to.
Marika took it, and after a few minutes let out a low whistle. Woo boy! Looks like I was... Looks like I was right. Writing a paper the night before actually is a great idea. I feel... I know this. I did that.
I think I've also been feeling more inspired as of late.
Umi said sheepishly. Why's that?
I've been working on a song.
Marika's eyes lit up, and for a moment Umi wondered why she was admitting this to her. No way! For real? Are you writing the music and lyrics?
I wrote the lyrics, but Maki is handling most of the music composition.
She looked over, and Marika's eyes were wide and disbelieving. Her expression reminded Umi of the fans that she used to run into years ago. Nishikino Maki? The one and only composer of Muse?
I don't think I'd be comfortable working with many other composers.
The process must be different since you two... Ugh. The process must be different since you two don't have much of a chance to talk. Ugh. Don't have much of a chance to talk anymore.
Oh, we do. She's a student here as well.
What? Marika practically shrieked, causing Umi to flinch. There are two idol celebrities on campus. Ugh. 2 idol celebrities on campus, and I didn't even realize?
Well, I didn't reach out to her until recently.
Are you two planning a Muse comeback? Marika leaned in, uncomfortably close. Umi couldn't blame her, though. This was probably incredible news for a fan like her.
No, nothing like that. The song might just involve the two of us.
Aww. Marika stepped back. Still, it's really awesome to hear that you're writing music again. Seeing that her for Pete's sake. Seeing that her own paper now rested unread at Marika's side, Umi reached out to take it back.
I shouldn't have to say this, but please don't tell anyone. This isn't a Muse project, so I'd hate to give people the wrong idea.
Marika raised a stiff hand to her head in a mock salute. Don't you remember how good I am at keeping secrets? Umi had to smile at the silly gesture.
I'm just making sure. If you do, I'll show you the finished project. Sorry, product.
The black-haired girl gasped, grinning widely. I can't wait! I can't wait! I keep on tripping over her descriptions of Marika, like, one day I'm just gonna say the black girl gasped. 5 days later, Umi sat at her computer, guitar in hand. She strummed to a few chords over a vocal melody that she was debating whether to scrap or build upon. After her last exam of the semester, she had promptly returned to her apartment. She had been drilled to start working on her song without any deadlines or papers looming over her head, and she felt as though she had made significant progress over the last few days. It was still very crude and sounded nothing like jazz, but it was a start. Maki had texted her about half an hour prior, letting her know that her grades were more or less finalized, and that she was on her way to Umi's apartment to show her personally. La 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 la. Currently, Umi checked her phone, but its screen did not indicate any new messages. At that moment, however, 3 knocks sounded at her door again. Umi sighed with relief and placed the Martin back on its stand with great care. Then she walked to the door and opened it to reveal a tired-looking Maki. A rolling suitcase stood and all 4 wheels. A rolling suitcase stood and all four wheels at her side.
I take it you're glad to be done.
Umi stepped aside to let her junior in. Maki's steps were heavy, and her suitcase accompanied her through the doorway. Without so much as a glance at Umi, she walked straight to the couch and flopped down onto it. A long, quiet groan followed her Pardon me. A long, quiet groan followed her, covering both of her hands. Oh my gosh. A long, quiet groan followed her, covering both of her hands with her face. Umi didn't press Maki to talk, instead choosing to follow her to the couch and sit down next to her. It didn't take long for Maki to recover anyway.
I'm okay.
She clarified.
I'm just ready to sleep for a little while.
I've been catching up for the last few days.
Lucky.
The redhead muttered.
How's the song?
Good, actually.
Umi brightened a little.
I'll show you the chords that I have so far when you're ready.
Maki nodded slowly, sinking even further into the couch. Umi couldn't let her rest for too long, however, since she had a sneaking suspicion as to why Maki had walked all the way to her apartment.
So Maki, what are your final grades?
I got A's in all my classes.
She stated. Umi tried to ignore the twinge of jealousy. College was a different beast, but less so for some people.
And that's where your grades were before you started writing the song?
They were still A's.
So?
Umi pressed. Maki was being indirect again.
Does that mean it didn't drop?
See for yourself.
Maki held out her phone for Umi to take. When she did, she saw that Maki had it open to a screenshot of her grades. A quick zoom-in revealed that they were indeed all A's. Lucky mother hugger. Or she could just tell me, a rather snarky voice in Umi's head whispered. But really, she didn't mind all that much. She probably would have asked for confirmation either way, so she swiped to the right, and sure enough, Maki's final grades for the semester were also A's. The percentages, however... There was a notable pattern in Maki's grades between then and now. A small, almost insignificant pattern, but a pattern nonetheless. She looked over to Maki for a sign of affirmation, and... Was that a smile?
Maki, you're...
She struggled to process the outcome, but this was reality.
Yes.
Instead of helping, Maki continued to lead her on. She raised an eyebrow, almost teasingly.
Your grades went down by less than 1%.
Umi finally succeeded in getting the words out, but her mind wasn't quite there yet. She scrolled back and forth between the two screenshots, which only confirmed what she feared.
All of them.
That's right.
So...
Maki now sported the now sported a full-fledged smile. No, a smirk.
That's what we agreed on. I told you what would happen if my grades slipped, and they slipped.
Umi opened her mouth, ready to mount her defense, and realized that she had none. Instead, she was forced to settle for a feeble...
But the difference is almost negligible.
The deal's a deal.
Maki shrugged. Umi could only nod, defeated, as she handed Maki her phone back. The redhead was exuding too much gusto for this to be an accident. She probably wouldn't get confirmation from the con woman herself, but she had definitely been played. However, there wasn't anything she could do about it now. She had agreed to Maki's condition after all, and she had gotten a song that they had made decent progress on together in return. Perhaps it could be worth it in the end, but first Umi had to take into account the gravity of her friend's request. Speaking of which,
What's your request then? You promised you'd tell me now.
admittedly, she had given some thought to Maki's possible request during the past 3 weeks, but she hadn't the slightest idea of where to start, in part because Maki hadn't dropped so much as a hint of what it might have been. She gave up on the issue shortly after, but it still pestered her in the back of her mind every now and again. Now, even as it was about to be revealed, she was still clueless, and as a result, somewhat ready for anything. That's what she liked to think, anyway.
It's easy. Come home for Christmas break.
Scratch that. She was certainly not ready for anything.
We're taking the train tomorrow morning. I'm already packed and ready to go.
At this, she nudged her suitcase with her left foot, so that was why she had brought it to the apartment.
What?
What? In the end, any of Umi's attempts at protesting, I haven't packed yet, I still need to clean the apartment, I wasn't planning on going home, etc., etc., were ineffective in consideration of the simple fact that this was Maki's one request, which he had agreed to uphold no matter what. And that was how Umi found herself on a Akihabara. And that was how Umi found herself on an Akihabara-bound train, a 5-hour ride from the station near campus. Maki sat across from her, one headphone in her ear, while the other hung limp and unused. She stared out the window, where the landscape was mostly bare and brown. Luckily, it hadn't snowed for the past few days, so it was a clear, albeit cold, ride home.
I feel like you tricked me.
Maki turned away from the window upon hearing those words, taking the single headphone out of her ear. Umi thought that she would have to repeat herself, but that immediately proved not to be the case.
What makes you say that?
Umi scratched at her chin with her thumb.
Actually, tricked might not be the most fitting word. Manipulated, perhaps?
Maki raised an eyebrow but didn't respond, so Umi continued.
So far, most of the progress that's been made on the song is my doing. I know you've given me a lot of pointers. You haven't had much time to work with the chords I showed you, but...
yeah, before we, like, move on, what's all that noise in the background? Is, like, someone lawn mowing?
Like, it sounds like someone's using a vacuum or something.
Yeah. Something going on in the background?
It's gone.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Ah, okay. Nova confirmed it was a vacuum.
Oh, okay, fair enough. It's okay.
Where was I?
It's like, I know you've given me a lot of pointers, and you haven't had much time to work with the chords I showed you, but...
Thank you. She looked out the window, fearing she was coming off as selfish. Did I say selfish or shellfish?
Selfish.
Okay, good. Fearing she was coming off as selfish, it sounded less accusatory in her head, but it was too late to take it back.
I agreed to come home with you because your grades fell a little, but I thought I'd see more of you as a result.
More from you.
Oh, sorry. I thought I'd see more from you as a result.
She risked a glance at Maki, which proved to be a mistake because she could not match her junior's neutral yet intimidating stare. Maki remained silent just long enough for Umi to regret what she said.
You agreed to lay out the chords. I didn't force you.
I know. It's just not what I agreed to in the first place.
She winced preemptively, expecting Maki to jump to her own defense. Her junior chewed on her lip, maintaining her stare.
Are you mad at me?
No, not mad per se, just...
Failing to find a better word, Umi could only shrug.
Eh.
Failing to find a better word, Umi could only shrug.
Oh, wait, is this supposed to be Umi saying this or Maki?
I think it's Maki.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, you're right, in a way.
A corner of the redhead's mouth turned up in an almost indiscernible smile.
I wouldn't say I tricked you, but this was my ulterior motive.
She motioned outside, indicating the moving train they currently sat in.
Did you plan this whole thing?
Not exactly. No one could have predicted that you were writing a song.
Maki shut her eyes briefly. Maki shut her eyes briefly and began to roll up her headphones, throwing them in her bag before turning back to Umi.
I wanted you to go home for break long before we started writing the song. So when you asked me for help, I thought it was the perfect opportunity. That way, if you agreed to do something in return after we made progress on the song, there was no way they could turn me down. Turns out...
She gestured to the current situation with a sweep of her hands.
It worked. I thought that you might say no to coming home otherwise.
I see.
Umi had to admit that it was a decent plan.
Don't worry, I'm still gonna keep my word.
Maki assured her.
While we're on break, I can really focus on this.
I wasn't doubting that. I was only realizing that you got everything you wanted.
Maki didn't need to confirm this, as both girls knew that she was right. She only smiled teasingly, and Umi was compelled to return the gesture. Maki had long since unraveled her headphones again, and both girls had been staring idly out the window for some time before Maki spoke up.
It's fun to write a song again.
It is, isn't it?
Could you repeat that, Savior?
So, it is, isn't it?
Early as they were into the process, Umi was already eager to hear the final product.
Oh.
She sat up a little straighter as the words reminded her of a question she had been meaning to ask.
Did you figure out what we're going to do about the instruments?
Maki nodded.
I thought about it. One of my old piano teachers plays for a band. He isn't that old, and he hates classical music, so I always wondered what he was doing as a teacher. It was never anything serious, but they have some experience in the studio.
Her hand continued to dig through her bag until she pulled out their crumpled, wrinkled, almost torn sheet of lyrics.
I wrote down his phone number here as a possible contact.
She added, unlocking her phone as she spoke. To Umi, however, the idea seemed a little dubious.
He'd do that for you? For free?
Maki stopped typing on her phone to look up at Umi.
Well, he might give me a discount, since I'm a former student.
Do they play jazz?
After hesitating briefly, the redhead replied with a quiet,
You like jazz? I'm sorry.
Please don't care what humans think is possible.
oh gosh. After hesitating briefly, the redhead replied with a quiet,
I don't know.
Umi frowned. Maki had said that she'd thought about it, but this came off as somewhat ill-prepared.
If they can't or won't play your arrangement, what then?
I know it isn't the best plan.
Maki admitted.
I told you that one, 'cause I didn't think you'd like my backup.
Backup?
A shadow crossed Umi's face.
Do I want to know?
Maki shrugged, either unfazed or oblivious to Umi's immediate air of disapproval.
You know there's a backup now, so I might as well tell you.
She took a breath, glancing at their lyrics once more before refocusing.
We can also advertise that we need people to record an instrumental for us. For that to have a chance of working, we had to get the word out that we're from Hughes. And that they were looking to make another song. Also, I have to be right back.
Okay. Really, they're, as former internet celebrities, they could probably find someone who would do this for free.
Yeah, probably.
Possibly, yeah.
Come do it for exposure and nothing else.
Yeah. Well, you gotta find someone that knows what they're doing at least.
I don't know, Muse featuring Jonathan Young. I'd watch that.
That would be interesting. How far are we in the chapter right now?
We're like what do you say, 2/3 of the way done.
Okay.
Yeah, these are some lengthy chapters, folks.
Yeah.
This is our long tournament arc for this show.
Yeah. I knew going in that this was gonna be it's gonna be a long one.
And you keep trying to recommend more Love Live fanfiction after.
I mean, that's mainly just because I read them on a regular basis anyway, and I just kind of look at some of them, and I'm just like, yeah, this could work well for the show at some point.
I don't even know what we're reading after this. Like,
Yeah, I don't either. I did suggest like finding a Donkey Kong fanfic that has like K. Rool going on, like what does K. Rool do during the events of the Returns games? I've never actually.
oh yeah,
I
that
know.
Hurt Comfort fic.
Yeah, I haven't actually looked to see if there's anything made about that. I don't really know what I'd search for, but if something like that exists, that could be fun.
Okay, I'm thinking of a story called In His Absence. Donkey Kong seeks out his old nemesis during the events of Donkey Kong Country Returns and finds that with new nemesis, he doesn't have much of a purpose in life anymore. Can they form a new bond as enemies as friends instead of enemies?
I can believe that. That sounds like something that would exist.
Please review my story.
This should be...
I could write the story. Let's go.
Yeah, this would be another Scrappy Fan 92 production.
Oh no, oh no. I'm not sure if the world's ready for that.
Does it also mean you'd have to abandon the other story, or like juggle both?
I mean, they're technically all Mario characters. I could just put that in as like just a random civilian episode.
True.
Like the oddest thing. Yeah, hi. We're gonna talk about my fanfiction again. Like skip ahead like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're not interested. Yeah. The kind of the weird conceit of my Super Mario show is that the Donkey Kong characters just don't show up that often. They're doing their own thing.
Right.
Like, yeah, I honestly could I have like maybe 7 recurring Mario characters in the chapters. I could probably use more.
That's yeah.
Maybe we'll do a Donkey Kong episode. Maybe.
Yeah, if we can find something decent. Besides that, God knows.
I guess we owe it to our audience to do a Sonic episode at some point.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what we do. I haven't actually looked at Sonic Fix in years, so I don't really know what we're gonna find, but yeah.
I'm sure we can find one of those again, one of those mythic hurt comfort fix, like about Tails after Sonic X.
Oh right, yeah, that probably could be interesting, I guess.
Who wants to voice a squeaky voice mutant? Who wants to do a squeaky voice mutant squirrel? I can think of a few fan fictions we could read. Like one will absolutely require Tanner, though.
Oh.
So, since this is our 10th episode spectacular, Harry, you've mentioned your favorite stories that we've read, but what is your favorite episode just to kind of participate in?
I mean, it's generally just fun hearing you guys go off, but in terms of just, I don't know, like, just general fun factor, God, I don't honestly know right now. I'd have to think about that. Most of the ones with Tanner are pretty good, honestly. I'm just trying to think back to all the things we've read. Like, we did the Wreck-It Ralph one, and we've done Your Story, and...
Spent 3 gosh darn episodes on My Story.
I don't know if I'd call it my favorite, but just making fun of the characters in your Mario fanfic, like being like like psychopaths or something, is pretty funny. I enjoyed that.
I still go back to the first episode just to go through Daisy going nuts.
Yeah. That's
so yeah,
good.
I guess episode 1 is my answer.
That's fair. Has Xavier only been in this and the Wreck-It Ralph one?
This, Star Wars, and Wreck-It Ralph, and Smash Bros. Hyrule Warrior story.
Oh
yeah, that one.
Oh yeah, that was a really good one. I forgot about that one. Yeah, that was a highlight.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's our longest episode, and I'm still not done transcribing all the dead audio moments.
Yeah, I've been noticing that. Like, you've been working through that. You have more patience than I do.
We need to pay someone to. How does one provide closed caption to videos?
I don't know. I don't know how that works.
I've done it for my own videos once. I need to actually fix some of them. You have to do it. You have to basically watch the video manual and put the subtitles in manually.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah,
No, I messed it up.
so yeah, I think first episode 1 had that, I think, the peak moments, just because that's just a crazy story.
Yeah.
Episode 4, 5, and what was Wreck-It Ralph, like episode 7?
Something like that.
Those might have had my actual favorite stories to read. In terms of like just funniest reactions and general hijinks. I think episodes 1, 4, and 7 were probably my favorites in that regard. And 9, when I just completely butchered a song.
Oh yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Oh, okay, I think I got this now. No idea if this is gonna get me anything. Oh, okay. Just rupees. It's fine.
We made it. We are at our 10th episode. This is. I didn't think we'd get this far.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how far did you think we'd get?
I don't know. We never do anything.
Yeah.
We have more episodes of this than I think we have of the modern podcast.
Maybe? I think we're around the similar level now. Might be wrong.
We can't schedule to save our lives.
Yeah.
That this show has made it to 10 episodes is a minor miracle in and of itself, and really should be 11 because episode 4 should be split.
Yeah.
Split into 2. 4 hours.
Obligatory Angry Joe reference.
Okay, alright, since we don't know when Nova's gonna come back, I'm just gonna use the bathroom.
Folks, this is what we call an intermission. I have nothing of value to say. Just
Me neither, honestly.
I wonder, would this show have lasted as long if we were reading bad fan fiction?
I'm not sure, but it would probably be funnier.
Maybe, but we're sticking to good fan fiction. This is our way to spread positivity into the onto the internet. Even if we are literally ripping most of these, but we do it from a place of love.
That is good at me.
I do find it interesting. Like, I riff on Star Wars and Love Live, like, in any other context, but when we read the stories, I'm actually kind of respectful. The Star Wars stories, like the one time I wasn't riffing on it the whole way through. Since Terry's not here, I guess it's time to tell you about our possible secret project. We, sometime in a distant future, will engage in something that is technically not fan fiction, but can also still qualify as fan fiction. It's gonna be interesting, and if this isn't picking up for anyone in the audience, my apologies. But to put it more succinctly, there will be a special project for story time with Scrappy in the distantest future. Keep an eye out for it. Also, I guess I'm just gonna declare it right here. Next episode will probably be chapter 4 of the story. It's rare that singular chapters take up a episode in and of themselves, unless they're one shots. But I guess that's how it has to be. Are you back?
Doesn't sound like.
This is dead audio. We need something. So how about politics? No, no.
No.
Oh yeah, you're Canadian. I don't know anything about your country's politics.
I guess one thing I could talk about is like I've been like marathoning the MCU with Jason and Nick. And like
How?
It's primarily so Jason can watch all the MCUs. We're almost caught up. I think the next one we're gonna watch is Black Panther.
Well, I think you'll enjoy that.
Yeah, I believe if I do recall, like it's Black Panther and then Thor Ragnarok and then Infinity War. It's gonna be a big one. And then of course, Ant-Man and Wasp, Captain Marvel, and then finally Endgame.
Soon.
Yeah, soon Jason's gonna feel the pain that we all felt. Because most of us primarily want to like get to like Infinity War, so that way we can like hear his, so that way we can see what his reaction to everything is gonna be like.
Oh man.
Yeah, because believe it or not, there actually are people who have not seen what happens at the end of the movie. So I would say what happens, but for the sake of not spoiler for anyone, I won't.
I feel like he knows already, but thank you for the spoiler courtesy for those who don't. Welcome back, Harry.
Because he kind of gets what goes on because of the memes, but he still hasn't actually seen it, so.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure if Nova's returned yet. Well, we didn't really discuss that much in your absence, but yeah, I think we're gonna just read the next chapter for the next episode. I'm just looking through one legacy fan fiction that I used to read in my youth that I think could work for down the line, but it would really need Tanner for this.
What series is it?
It's called The L Stands for Loser.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a Mario fanfiction, and Luigi is the unfortunate main character.
Oh, okay, I see what kind of story it's supposed to be now, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if this story informs some of my humor for my Mario story.
Possibly?
My Luigi is actually not a punching bag, though. I'm actually kind of surprised about that. Like, he's the one who does the punching. There's 20 chapters of this story, and yeah, like this will maybe possibly be a backup.
Breaking people's bones.
He does not break bones.
I love pulling your leg over the house. Amazing.
Yeah, this is this is a Tanner story though. All 20 chapters of it. At least the early chapters are short. Yeah, the early chapters are like in script format.
Uh. Oh man. So this, what is it? This this fanfic you're talking about? Does it have, how many chapters does it have?
20.
Oh wow. Are they long or short?
They run the gamut. Early chapters are short but they're written in script format. Like, I'm not sure when the chapters get longer. Probably after probably from like chapter 10 onwards.
Okay.
They're not too long though. These are mostly like one-shot episodes. Like there's only it's not until near the end where they get like a story arc. So yeah, like chapter 16 through 18 is like a 3-part episode, and then 19 and 20 are standalone again.
Fair enough.
16 through 19 are probably my favorites. They're just, oh gosh, I have some fond memories of that. I'm not sure how much they hold up, but oh gosh, this was hilarious to read as a kid. There's an old Banjo-Kazooie story.
Oh.
I'm not. Yeah, this it's not. I don't think it's finished, but it was something I often read through.
Good.
I thought it was called "Stuck with You."
If I could like get like money for every time I read like an unfinished fanfic, I'd probably be rich by now.
Probably would. It's like the worst ones are. It hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
Alright, let's finish this shit.
Oh, hi. Alright, if I...
Oh, hello there.
Hi.
Welcome back. All right.
Gotta remember this timestamp for the video upload. All right. Anyways, you guys continue.
Maki shrugged, either unfazed or oblivious to Umi's immediate air of disapproval.
You know that there's a backup now, so I might as well tell you.
She took a breath, glancing at their lyrics once more before refocusing.
We can also advertise that we need people to record an instrumental for us. For that to have a chance of working, we need to get the word out that we're from Muse, and that we're looking to make another song.
At this, Maki bit her lip, swaying her head from side to side. Umi could almost see the gears in her head turning, as if the plan sounded even more unlikely to succeed now that she had said it out loud.
Oh.
We would advertise online. Advertise online, of course. But I was thinking that it would be even better to post and hand out flyers and Akihabara, whatever. I think Muse might still have some traction there, so we'd have a higher chance of finding someone who's interested.
Umi sank into her seat, staring at Maki with her wide golden eyes.
You're right. I don't like that plan at all. Even if we don't get someone to agree, we're drawing a lot of attention to ourselves.
Her junior nodded.
That's why it's a backup. If people hear that we're making another song, that will give them all sorts of ideas.
Exactly. Oh wait.
Yeah,
Oh wait. Sorry. I run too far ahead. They might think we're getting back together.
Umi shuddered, not at the idea of being an idol again, but at the idea of being an idol and a full-time college student.
Exactly. Not all of Muse is in touch right now. If that rumor spreads, it could really be a mess.
Even though her own name was not mentioned specifically, Umi was clearly the target of that statement. She felt a stab of pain, and it was all she could do to manage. And it was all she could do to manage a nod in response. Fortunately for her, Maki did not seem intent on leveling any more accusations at her.
That's why it's only a backup plan. I'd rather have the musical arrangement quiet.
Umi nodded at this as well, and both girls fell silent. She turned her attention back towards the window, and saw Maki take out and unravel her headphones out of the corner of her eye. Time passed, but Umi was unable to use the fleeting landscape to keep track. It was rather unchanging after all. Dormant rice fields, barren trees, and hardy, unappealing grasses and bushes consumed most of her field of vision. Maki speaking up again after some time hanging in that strange fluid limbo brought her back to the present.
I lied, by the way.
Umi's attention shifted back to her friend sitting across from her, and suddenly she became aware of the lazy pose that she had adopted while staring out the window. With considerable effort, she sat up fully in her seat, stifling a yawn.
Come again?
She hoped for further elaboration on Maki's part.
There's one more condition that I have in exchange for writing the song with you.
Maki stared, unblinking, at her senior. It was somewhat intimidating. This wasn't very good news from Umi's perspective.
We didn't agree on that.
Her eyes narrowed.
You're right. Just consider it,
At this, the redhead twisted a strand of her hair around a finger. Umi watched the familiar motion while her junior paused.
a natural extension from the first part.
Umi tried and failed not to look unimpressed.
I think I know where this is going.
And you get why, right?
Maki cracked a smile at her.
I got you to come home for 3 weeks, so I can't let you just hide in your room while you're there.
So, your second condition is for me to socialize?
With the other girls, yes. I think most of them are going to be coming home for Christmas. If they aren't already. Oh.
Sorry, could you go through that one more time?
With the other girls, yes. I think most of them are going to be home for Christmas, if they aren't already.
Umi moved to respond, but Maki cut her off. Maki cut her off with a swift single finger raised into the air between them.
Everyone wants you back, even if you don't want anything to do with it. Don't you think it's about time you explained yourself?
She was sure that Maki didn't mean it that way. There was no way she could have known, after all. Still, her words struck an immediate and entirely unwanted fear into Umi, who jerked forward, her mouth open and full of denials and protests. But they never formed into actual words, not unlike me. Instead, she remained frozen in that position, mouth agape and eyes wide, until she realized that she had misunderstood.
Sorry.
She stammered, swallowing her overreaction. However, her near outburst had its own effect on her friend sitting across from her. On her friend sitting across from her. Maki had leaned back considerably in her seat upon witnessing Umi's unexpected reaction.
I didn't think you'd be that opposed to seeing everyone again. But if you are...
That's not it.
Umi cut her off, and Maki shrank further away from her as she was interrupted.
You said everyone wants me back?
She couldn't explain herself. This wasn't Maki's problem, so it would be wrong to drag. This wasn't Maki's problem, so it would be wrong to drag her into it.
As far as I can tell.
How do you know?
Maki didn't respond right away, and instead her eyes looked Umi up and down, sizing her up. The blue-haired girl squirmed, feeling as though she had asked a wrong question.
Do you think otherwise?
Umi shifted her gaze outside. Umi shifted her gaze outside the window again, as Maki's stare was too intense to hold.
I don't know what to think.
When she looked over to see Maki's eyebrow raised in confusion, she clarified.
I haven't seen or heard from everyone since I don't read our group chat. You would know all of those things, not me.
She heard a hollow, repetitive sound coming from Maki's side of the train car, and looked over to see the redhead's foot tapping rapidly against the floor. Looking up, the other girl was visibly troubled in the way that her... Oh gosh. Looking up, the other girl was visibly troubled in the way that her brow furrowed and her frown was longer than normal. She muttered, barely audible from where Umi sat.
I guess it's better for me to tell you now.
She looked up, affixing Umi with that intense purple gaze.
This isn't any of my business, so I'm not going to ask you any more than what you're comfortable with.
Umi motioned for her to continue with a hesitant nod.
Whenever you come up in our chat, it's about how you've disappeared and how much everyone misses you. Almost everyone agrees with that. The first couple times that it happened, I just thought it was bad timing, but...
At this, her eyes flickered. She turned away. Maybe she didn't want to see Umi's reaction.
Hanukkah and Kotori never say anything about it. They just...
She hesitated again, and her next words were heavy and difficult.
They never talk about you.
She expected it, drew and drew, but the words still hit her like a ton of bricks. Through her stunned silence, she realized that Maki was still talking. She forced herself to pay attention. That statement still rung in her ears.
Everyone noticed it, but we decided together that if something had happened, you three had to sort it out on your own.
Her own voice came out strained, close to cracking, and it surprised her how quickly her emotions threatened to spill over. She cleared her throat, composing herself.
I see.
It was all she could manage at the moment. Maki's next words were measured, careful.
So, you haven't heard from them recently?
She wasn't seeking for affirmation. It was a statement with a frightening degree of finality.
No, I haven't.
Umi kept her eyes on the floor, trying to focus on how it rattled and shook with the train.
Are they going to be there?
Hanukkah probably will be. We're trying to get Kotori to come home, too. But she said that she might have to stay in Tokyo over break.
Umi's eyes widened as she heard this.
Does everyone know that I'm coming back?
Not yet. What do you think about surprising them?
Again, the hints of a smile played across the redhead's mouth.
You can tell them that you finally wanted to come home for a while. If we tell them the truth, It might sound like I forced you into.
Umi regarded her friend with... Excuse me. Umi regarded her friend with... Oh my gosh. Umi regarded her friend with suspicion.
You want me to lie?
Maki shrugged.
More or less. We both know that you're overdue for this anyway.
Yes, but that doesn't mean I'm ready.
Maki looked away from her to reach into her bag. She produced a small travel pillow and She produced a small travel pillow and, wrapping it snug around her neck, leaned back and half closed her eyes.
You have about it.
Umi followed her friend's lead, but since she neglected to bring a pillow of her own, she could only sink down into her seat with a sigh.
We're meeting tomorrow?
The redhead nodded.
Sometime in the afternoon. Everyone except Hanukkah and Kotori will be there, including us.
This time, Umi was expecting that last part.
I hope it goes well.
Her voice was full of uncertainty.
Everyone just wants to see you again. I'm sure there's a lot for you to talk about.
Too much about.
Could you run that by one more time, please?
Sorry, maybe too much about.
Umi ignored the negative thought that sprung into her mind.
Where's everyone planning on meeting?
Nozomi's apartment, I think.
It's a trap!
Everyone
Run.
wants to sleep in, so we'll probably go after lunch.
Maki herself certainly looked the part. Her eyes had closed fully by now, her head tilted back since the pillow didn't offer enough support. Umi could agree with that sentiment too.
I'm sure it'll be in the chat.
She looked absently at the adjacent rows of seats up and down the train, noting the train's other passengers, few as they were. She looked back to Maki to see that the other girl was staring at her with one eye open.
Don't say anything yet. It's supposed to be a surprise.
I know. I'm just going to read everyone's messages.
The redhead relaxed again.
I don't have to make sure you're going, do I? I'm not planning on picking you up or calling you tomorrow.
Umi responded with a light shake of her head.
I really do want to go.
She looked down and after a moment added,
But I am a little nervous.
I'm going to grill you, though.
That's exactly it.
Umi sighed.
I'm going to be the center of attention, aren't I?
You are.
She shuddered.
There's no way around that?
Maki shifted onto her side, so she faced the window. Her eyes remained closed. Her eyes remained closed, and Umi idly wondered if she would let her friend sleep. If she should let her friend sleep.
Don't worry about it.
That's the last thing you should tell someone who's worried.
Umi didn't voice her thoughts aloud, since Maki was already settling into her new sleeping position. She looked back out towards the window, where the tops of buildings started to appear above the horizon like old friends welcoming her home. She remembered that it was exactly what was waiting for her, and the comparison made her look away from the window, full of uneasiness. Akihabara was in sight, but they still had a while to go before they arrived. Maki had fallen asleep already, or at the very least, she was trying quite hard to do so, as indicated by her rhythmic breathing.
She might be onto something.
Umi breathed to herself. Taking her friend's lead, she looked through her bag and finding the object of interest, pulled her own pair of earphones from it, After they were comfortably in place, she plugged them into her smartphone and started up her own jazz playlist. It was skeletal compared to the one Maki had shown her. But she had to start somewhere. The trumpets singing in her ears. The trumpets singing. Oh my gosh. The trumpets singing in her ears. She closed her eyes.
Oh, wrong trumpets.
That was brilliant.
Just the little things. A hand shook her awake, followed by a voice, much too close to her ear.
Umi, we're here.
She shrunk away from the invasive hand, grasping in vain at the holds of sleep.
The train's about to leave.
Umi heard a sigh from above her.
The train.
The hand that shook.
I'm sorry. The train heading for the Mystic Ruins will be departing soon.
You cut out. What were you saying?
The train heading for the Mystic Ruins will be departing soon.
Exactly. Umi heard a sigh from above her. The hand that shook her shoulder now gripped it and pulled, dragging Umi all of a few inches away from the edge of the seat. Its other intended effect was much more successful.
Okay, I'm awake!
With a tremendous effort, she cracked her eyes open, squinting immediately at the harsh white light that illuminated the train. She shifted onto her back and faced Maki fully, her right hand moving to shield her eyes from the light, while her left reached for the earphones still in her ears, though they had long since stopped playing music. Her arms were still too unresponsive to do anything more complicated than allowing her earphones to hang down in front of her shirt, so she resigned them to that position. She couldn't look up for fear of the light blinding her, and she noted that Maki's suitcase stood next to her, the handle fully extended. She groaned. She happened to glance to her left, past Maki, and saw a few passengers waiting in line for the nearest door to free up. They seemed in no hurry to exit out into the station.
Wait, the train isn't about to leave. It seems like we just got here.
It did, but I thought you'd wake up faster if I said that.
Yuck, 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 yuck. Maki took her hand off of Umi's shoulder. It found its place on her hip, her other hand holding her smartphone, which she now glanced towards.
The train will leave if you keep lying around, though.
Umi wanted to chastise her friend in her nonchalance towards lying, but now wasn't the time for a morality lesson. Her eyes still heavy with sleep, she took hold of her bag and stood up unsteadily, her limbs aching for a stretch. She instead opted for a more modest rubbing of her eye, unable to stifle the yawn that followed. It was cut short as she caught sight of Maki's back already turned to her, slowly retreating as the other girl started towards the exit.
Hey, wait!
Clumsily, she slung her bag over one shoulder while gripping her suitcase with her other hand. She took off after her friend, her suitcase teetering on one wheel behind. Oh gosh. Her suitcase teetering on one wheel behind her. Luckily, the aisle was spacious enough that she didn't have to push anyone else out of the way. She didn't know if she would have had the audacity to do so anyway. Maki was waiting for her on the platform, her focus directed towards her smartphone. Wait, who dropped? Welcome back, Nova. Where was I? Maki was waiting for her on the platform, her focus directed towards her smartphone. Umi glared at her as she finally caught up, having successfully navigated through the modest crowd of travelers.
Why did you leave me back there?
I didn't want to give you a chance to go back to sleep.
The pianist gave Umi a quick glance before turning back to her phone. Its white light illuminated her face more so than the soft yellows of the train station. Umi rolled her eyes. She had shaken off any traces of sleep from them in her rush to get off the train.
That was unnecessary.
Maki ignored her.
Do you want to ride home? I'm going to ask my parents to send someone to pick me up.
She pointed at her phone.
Your parents?
Umi repeated, the word triggering a realization in her. Her eyes widened in horror.
Oh no.
Maki looked up again, questioning her silently with a raised eyebrow.
I forgot to tell my parents. Oh, yeah, I think that's Umi talking. Is that Umi talking?
I think
I
so.
believe it has to be.
Okay, yeah. I forgot to tell my parents that I'm coming home for Christmas.
Umi slapped her hand against her forehead, already berating herself for overlooking what should have been an obvious detail. Maki's eyes widened in a similar manner to Umi's own, but her true reaction was betrayed by a short burst of laughter that escaped her mouth. She silenced it quickly, but not before Umi whirled to look at her, and by then she couldn't contain her amused smile.
You didn't?
She asked, in between giggles. Umi's glare seemed to do little to discourage her laughter.
What's so funny?
Nothing.
Her laughter subsided, but the smile remained.
It should be fine. It's not like they're renting out your room or anything.
Umi nodded silently. It must have been a little too unsure because Maki's smile faded.
They're not. Oh wait, that's Maki's.
They're not, are they?
No, nothing like that. At least I don't think so.
She added.
Then you'll be fine.
Maki's phone buzzed in her hand, but she ignored it to ask Umi.
So, do you want to ride or not?
Umi considered it for a moment. She looked out at the sea of people, spilling from the train station out into the streets.
Thanks, but I'll walk. My house is less than a mile from here.
Are you sure?
Her phone continued to buzz, but she still didn't pick up. Umi nodded.
It's still pretty bright, and the streets look like they're crowded.
She looked back to her friend, sporting a smile.
And it's been a while since I've been home.
Maki bit her lip and shrugged.
Say so. Call me if you change your mind.
I think I'll be okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Wait, did you say I'll see you tomorrow?
Yeah. You're like, I think I'll be okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hear it. Thank you. Wouldn't it be hilarious if her parents just moved away while she was gone?
Oof.
Maki nodded, and Umi was surprised to see that her phone hadn't gone to voicemail already. She picked it up and, with a final wave, took her suitcase in her other hand. Umi could hear snippets of the conversation, most likely with her chauffeur, as her voice started to blend in with the bustle of the crowd.
Yes, I'm at the station.
She was soon indistinguishable from the rest of the station's visitors. Though it was late afternoon and the crowd's density would usually be at its highest, Maki's decision to take a Sunday train home proved to be a wise one. Today the train users we're almost done. Today the train users were more easygoing, less impatient, and most importantly, smaller in number. Umi grasped her suitcase's handle with one hand, and straightened out her windbreaker with her other, and she didn't have to thread her way through the crowd as she stepped outside. The evening chill was there to greet her, a harsh reminder that she lacked the foresight to wear her beanie, which was currently stuffed in some corner of her suitcase, past the reach of the tall buildings that surrounded her. The sky, already covered by a cloudy gray, was starting to darken. Akihabara, a constantly evolving cultural center, stopped for no one. Yet in a strange way, it seemed unchanged from when Umi had left 2 years ago. She had expected to be overwhelmed upon her arrival, having been away for so long. But the city lights and traffic sounds seemed to welcome her. Umi smiled and set off for home. She wouldn't have to walk far. She had already been home the moment she stepped off the train. End chapter.
Nope.
It only took 3 hours. Okay, it's actually like 2 hours exactly.
Yeah. It's a long
Oh boy, I get to go through all the dialogue later.
Man. Have fun with that.
Screw off. I will... If you give me the codes to your video, I will like actually do the full, proper, thorough, closed captioning.
I'll be right back.
Alright.
Bye, Xavier. Come back soon. I'm about to pass out. Alright. Just thoughts?
Well, we're definitely picking up now. Gonna get to see the other characters soon. I'm curious what you guys have to say right now.
My tongue hurts.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in what. I'm kind of interested in what went down between Umi and the other members of her subunit.
Yeah, that's what I like about this is that the gives you a sense of intrigue that makes you want to keep reading, and I like that.
It was nice to see Marika again.
That's true. What'd you have to say, Nova?
Who?
What did you think about this chapter?
Alright then, it should be clear.
Okay.
Well, if you want to know my thoughts, I actually do really like the part where this whole thing was just so Umi can actually come back to see the rest of Muse, or at least most of them, and actually talk with them again. It was actually just a whole plan to just reunite for a bit.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cute.
Yeah, I like that. It's very crafty side of Maki. Don't really see that much. I guess at this point, are we just waiting for Xavius to come back so he can say his piece?
I guess so. I echo Nova's sentiments about Maki's master plan. I'm out of it. Hi.
It's fine. You have to do so much talking, I can understand.
I need to invest in one of those like text-to-speech things. I get some. This is a shipping fan fiction, ostensibly, and yeah, Maki definitely screws with Umi in the. Pardon.
It's friend shipping, not regular shipping. That's a difference.
I'm not sure about that.
There'll be shipping, but it's not going to be for a long time, and it's not exactly as. It's not going to be as simple as that.
Whatever, I just don't give a shit about shipping in general. I think it's a waste of time, but whatever.
That's fine.
You're in the wrong section of. You missed. Wait, you literally read the whole Smash Bros. Ship fanfiction.
Yeah, and I thought it was nice, but I still don't give a shit about shipping. And
I mean,
well.
that's fine.
Well, that took the wind out of my sails. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I can see why they have the slow burn and the slowest of burns as tags.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty funny.
Very heavily detailed chapters.
Yeah.
I don't have much else to say. It's just.
Yeah, this guy really really likes what is it? I don't know if a general world building is the correct term, but you know. Very descriptive, I suppose. Oh, cool. Didn't know the mirror shield was actually in this game. So how about that Crash 4?
I'm a little burnt out right now. I can't even.
It's fair. That's fine.
It's at least something I care about, and I can't wait to actually play it.
Yeah. Alright, I forgot I could do that. Oh, wait. I don't know. This place is confusing. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop.
So how exactly did the Tunics work in the original Game Boy release?
So you have you have your normal green one at the start, and the color dungeon lets you choose between like an offense or a either offensive or a defensive upgrade. Blue's defense and red's offense, and I went with defense, so that's why I'm blue.
Okay, this was added to the DX version.
Yeah, this is the DX upgrade. Yeah. Oh, pfft. Can this even work from over here? No. Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop playing. I think I'm done. Hi. Do we want to wait for Xavier, or do we want to just finish?
I'd rather not. I mean, oh, gosh, I'd rather wait till everyone said their Savior, you're back. His ring is green, but
Yeah, I'm seeing that too.
only the highest standards of professionalism at this show. We may end it if... Oh gosh. I really don't want to end it without him.
Yeah, I wanted. Yeah, it wouldn't be right.
Anyway, to reiterate, our next episode will probably be the next chapter of this. And I don't know when we'll record, probably 1 to 2 weeks. That's our schedule.
Yeah, I feel like especially since we're about to get the other Muse members now, it will probably be a bit of a disservice to move on to something else next time. But it might be, I don't know, like 2 weeks from now, maybe. I don't know. Guess we'll see.
Yep, let's see who I can rope in for that.
Yeah, we're gonna need a lot of voices.
Yeah, all 9 men in our group will be required.
I wonder if anyone else has played my level. I'm just kind of screwing around. Hey. So people have died. Most of people died, not that many, but still. Okay, yeah. Oh, this is awful. I'm putting like no effort into this. Can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Ah. Wait, did someone leave?
Hello?
Oh, hi.
It's time for
already
final
end?
thoughts.
Yeah, we're waiting for you to give your final thoughts before we ended.
Oh. I kinda liked the story. A part of me feels like I probably would have, I liked it a bit more if I've read the other chapters leading up to it, but I will say I do like the premise of it, where it's basically seeing what all the girls have been doing since their high school days and are behind them now.
Yeah.
All right,
Like
then. That's...
Like and,
Oh, God.
and of course and honestly, like one big takeaway that I got from this is the fact that boys actually exist. All right, I feel like that's all I have to say on everything.
Okay, fair enough. And
Alright, well...
as I very badly write out story time with Scrappy Fan 92 and Mario Maker 2.
Maddie online, is that our Maddie?
I don't know.
Alright, well, I thank all of you for your participation, and I thank all of you watching at home. This has been our 10th episode, and wow, we have not improved at all, but we will continue to provide you quality entertainment in the near future.
Indeed.
So please, have a good night.
And always remember, stop forcing characters to be gay just so they have diversity. Actually have a point to your story, otherwise don't do it.
Yeah.
Can we not do this tonight, please?
Um...
And it's Love Live, everyone's gay.
I mean, I don't have an, like, people are allowed to ship characters if they want to do it.
If they can ship Pit and Lana out of... That's a crack pairing.
Like...
If they can ship Pit and Lana, they can ship anyone.
Yeah. You don't have to like shipping, I'm not gonna say that, but... People, like, if this... what they want to do, that's what they want to do. There's no harm in that.
Just don't force it down people's throats, that's all I'm saying.
I mean, that's fair.
You don't have to seek it out. It's...
I mean, that's... It depends on where you're looking as well. There are shipping wars for a reason. I just do... That stuff is just it's just a can of worms I just don't care to go down.
Yeah.
Regardless,
I don't either.
Are we done, people?
I'm done. I just need to get that out of my chest.
We thank you, folks, for your participation, and we wish you all a good night. And we will see you within 1 to 2 weeks.
Indeed. Goodbye. Yeah, I'll just stop streaming. I have no reason to keep streaming this.
Nova, you doing okay, buddy? You seem a little cranky